There is a painful truth many men discover too late in their lives. Some women will betray you even when you give them genuine love, loyalty, stability, and commitment. Not because you failed as a man, not because you were weak or insufficient, but because loyalty was never a core part of who they were. These women can look sweet, devoted, and innocent on the surface. They can say the right words, mirror your values, and make you believe you are building something safe. But when the right environment appears, when temptation aligns with opportunity, their true nature quietly reveals itself. Infidelity rarely begins with hatred or dissatisfaction alone. Often it begins with attention, excitement, ego stimulation, or emotional novelty. For some women, these forces are stronger than promises, history, or shared sacrifices. They are not chasing a better man. They are chasing a feeling inside themselves that never stays filled for long. When that feeling is triggered, loyalty collapses, not dramatically, but subtly, through small justifications that feel harmless in the moment. This is where many men internalize the wrong lesson. They believe if they had loved harder, communicated better, provided more, or been more patient, the outcome would have changed. But loyalty is not created by effort alone. It is a character trait rooted in emotional discipline, self-awareness, and values formed long before a relationship begins. You cannot negotiate it into existence, and you cannot earn it through sacrifice. Some women are not built for long-term commitment because their internal world is unstable. They rely heavily on external validation, emotional stimulation, and social reinforcement to feel alive. As long as everything feels calm and predictable, they appear loyal. But when chaos, novelty, or ego gratification enters the picture, restraint disappears. In those moments, the mask does not fall off suddenly. It simply stops being maintained. This video exists for one purpose: to protect men from internal collapse caused by betrayal they never saw coming. Not by promoting bitterness or hatred, but by offering clarity. When you understand the psychological patterns that precede infidelity, you stop blaming yourself for outcomes that were never under your control. You begin to recognize that love does not fail because it was weak, but because it was invested in someone who could not carry it responsibly. What follows are 8 brutal reasons why some women will never be loyal if certain patterns dominate their lives. These are not accusations, and they do not apply to all women. They are warning signs, patterns, not moments, structures, not mistakes. When these structures exist, loyalty becomes unstable by default, and the first pattern begins not with men, temptation, or opportunity, but with something far more subtle and dangerous: an addiction to validation that no relationship can ever satisfy. Next, we'll break down why validation addiction quietly destroys loyalty from the inside, and why no amount of love can cure it. Some women wake up every day with an invisible emptiness inside them. It is not loneliness in the traditional sense, and it is not sadness that can be solved by companionship. It is a hollow space where self-worth should live. For these women, attention functions like oxygen. Without it, they feel unseen, unimportant, and quietly panicked. Their identity is built not on who they are, but on how much they are noticed. Every like, comment, message, or compliment becomes proof that they still matter. When the attention slows down, anxiety begins to rise. When it disappears, they feel emotionally erased. This is why validation addiction is so dangerous to loyalty. It does not care where the attention comes from, only that it arrives. A loyal partner cannot compete with an endless stream of external affirmation because the need itself has no bottom. When a woman is addicted to validation, she is not searching for a better man. She is running from the fear of becoming irrelevant. Any man who makes her feel seen, desired, or admired becomes emotionally valuable in that moment. It does not start as betrayal. It starts as harmless replies, playful banter, curiosity, and reassurance seeking. But over time, those small interactions form emotional pathways that bypass the relationship entirely. Many men believe they can solve this by loving her harder, reassuring her more, or becoming more attentive. This is where they fail repeatedly. Addiction cannot be cured by supply. The more validation you give, the more her nervous system becomes dependent on it, when you eventually cannot keep up, and no man can forever. She looks elsewhere without consciously deciding to betray you. In her mind, she is not disloyal. She is surviving. The painful truth is that no amount of deep love can fill an endless void. Validation addiction is not healed by commitment, stability, or sacrifice. It requires internal work, emotional discipline, and identity independent of external approval. Without that foundation, loyalty becomes conditional on attention levels, not values. These women often appear affectionate, expressive, and emotionally available at first. They can make you feel deeply chosen. But what you are feeling is not loyalty. It is dependency. And dependency shifts quickly when new sources of validation appear. This is why betrayal in these cases feels sudden and shocking. The connection felt real because it was real, but it was never anchored. Men who encounter this pattern often leave feeling inadequate, confused, and broken. They ask themselves what they did wrong. The answer is usually nothing. You are not dealing with a lack of love. You are dealing with a psychological hunger that turns intimacy into a temporary drug. Understanding this pattern protects you from internalizing pain that does not belong to you. It also prepares you to recognize the next danger, one that often accelerates validation addiction and pushes women toward betrayal even faster: the influence of friends and social environments that normalize disloyalty. In the next part, we will explore how peer pressure and negative social circles quietly dismantle commitment, even when a woman believes she is thinking for herself. Some women do not cheat because they wake up wanting to betray their partner. They cheat because they are surrounded by people who make disloyalty feel normal, harmless, and even empowering. Environment matters more than intention, and this is a truth many men underestimate. When a woman's closest friends ridicule commitment, glorify attention, and treat boundaries as outdated, loyalty begins to erode long before any physical betrayal occurs. If her friends laugh at faithful men, celebrate nightlife and constant male attention, normalize emotional intimacy with men online, and tell cheating stories as entertainment, she is already halfway out of the relationship. Not because she consciously agrees with them, but because repeated exposure reshapes her internal standards. What once felt wrong begins to feel ordinary. What once required guilt begins to feel justified. Women absorb emotional and social energy far more deeply than men. When the people around her praise recklessness, loyalty starts to look like weakness. When her friends treat their bodies as tools for validation and leverage, she unconsciously learns to see attention as currency. This influence is rarely acknowledged openly. She will insist her friends do not affect her choices, but subconsciously, she mirrors their behaviors, attitudes, and rationalizations almost perfectly. This is where many men lose the battle without realizing it. You are not just in a relationship with one woman. You are in a relationship with the voices that speak through her. Every opinion, joke, comparison, and story she absorbs becomes part of her internal dialogue. When temptation appears, those voices do not warn her to protect the relationship. They encourage her to explore, enjoy, and prioritize feeling alive. Peer pressure does not push loudly. It whispers. It reframes betrayal as self-discovery. It calls disloyalty freedom. It disguises irresponsibility as empowerment. And once these ideas take root, they override the values a man believed he was building with her. A woman surrounded by disloyal influences will slowly reinterpret loyalty as limitation. She may still care about you, but caring is no longer enough to override her environment when the moment comes. Betrayal feels less like a moral failure and more like a natural step everyone around her already took. Men often try to counter this by being more understanding, more flexible, and more tolerant. This only accelerates the problem. When standards are lowered in the face of negative influence, respect disappears. Loyalty does not survive in environments where it is mocked. Recognizing this pattern is not about controlling who a woman associates with. It is about understanding that character is shaped collectively, not individually. When her closest circle lives without boundaries, she eventually will too. And that leads directly to the next issue, one that makes betrayal possible even without bad friends or validation addiction weak boundaries. In the next part, we will uncover how a lack of boundaries allows temptation to enter quietly and destroy loyalty without intention or malice. Not all betrayal begins with desire. Some of it begins with weakness. A lack of boundaries is not the desire to have many men, but the inability to protect oneself from attention, temptation, and emotional closeness when it appears. These women are not necessarily malicious or calculated. They are often conflict avoidant, emotionally soft, and afraid of closing doors that make them feel valued. They respond to messages they should ignore. They accept compliments they should deflect. They keep old connections just in case. They tell themselves it is harmless, polite, or innocent. But boundaries do not collapse all at once. They erode slowly, through small allowances that feel reasonable in isolation. A reply becomes a conversation. A conversation becomes emotional familiarity. Emotional familiarity becomes attachment. This is how doors get opened that were never meant to be opened. She allows emotional intimacy where distance should exist. She tolerates flirting where silence is required. She shares vulnerabilities with men who are not her partner. Each step feels minor, but together they form a path that leads directly to betrayal. Many men confuse softness with innocence, but softness without discipline is dangerous. Naivety without boundaries does not protect loyalty. It invites its destruction. A woman does not need bad intentions to be unfaithful. She only needs weak limits and repeated exposure to temptation. These women often genuinely believe they are doing nothing wrong. They rationalize every step until the final line is crossed. By the time betrayal happens, it feels accidental, even to them. This is why their explanations sound confusing and inconsistent. They did not plan to cheat. They drifted into it. The real issue is not temptation itself, but the refusal to close doors early. Strong boundaries are not about mistrust or control. They are about self-respect and clarity. A woman with strong boundaries does not need to explain herself because she does not place herself in questionable situations in the first place. When boundaries are weak, loyalty depends entirely on circumstances. If temptation is absent, she appears faithful. If temptation is present, everything becomes negotiable. This is not loyalty. It is situational compliance. Men who encounter this pattern often blame themselves for being too trusting. Trust was not the mistake. Trust without boundaries is. Loyalty requires structure. Without it, even good intentions collapse under pressure. And this vulnerability becomes even more dangerous when combined with another modern pattern, an excess of male friends who occupy emotional space that should belong to the relationship. In the next part, we will examine why too many male friends quietly destroy exclusivity and turn loyalty into an illusion. When a woman surrounds herself with many male friends, the issue is rarely friendship itself. The deeper problem is what those friendships quietly represent. She is not collecting companionship. She is collecting options. Each man in her circle offers something different: attention, validation, emotional comfort, excitement, problem solving. or the unspoken possibility of replacement, even if nothing physical happens. The emotional structure of loyalty is already compromised. Most of these men are not neutral. They are waiting. They may act supportive, respectful, or patient. But if the signal ever turns green, many would step forward without hesitation. A woman understands this on an intuitive level. She is not naive. She knows the intentions, even if she pretends otherwise. That awareness alone changes how she values exclusivity. Being constantly surrounded by men creates the illusion of abundance, and abundance is the enemy of loyalty. When replacement feels easy, appreciation fades. When attention is always available, commitment feels optional. The relationship no longer feels like a choice that must be protected, but a position that can be swapped if discomfort arises. The danger is not a casual group setting or occasional interaction. The danger lies in emotional intimacy that runs parallel to the relationship. Late-night conversations, private jokes, old crushes kept as friends, co-workers who understand her better than you do, men who reply faster, listen longer, or make her feel more emotionally seen. These connections quietly drain exclusivity while maintaining plausible deniability. A woman cannot fully belong to one man while keeping emotional doors open to many others. Loyalty requires emotional containment when her emotional energy is spread across multiple male figures. The bond with her partner weakens, not because love disappears, but because focus dissolves. Men often tolerate this out of fear of appearing insecure or controlling. They tell themselves they are being mature. But loyalty is not sustained by pretending threats do not exist. It is sustained by clarity. Emotional boundaries are just as important as physical ones, and often more dangerous when ignored. This pattern also conditions a woman to compare. She notices how different men respond to her moods, desires, and needs without realizing it. She begins to measure you against a rotating panel of alternatives. Over time, dissatisfaction grows, not because you changed, but because comparison never stops. When conflict arises, instead of repairing the bond, she subconsciously leans outward. Support becomes external, comfort becomes outsourced, and once emotional loyalty breaks, physical betrayal becomes a matter of timing, not morality. This is why many betrayals seem to come out of nowhere. The groundwork was laid long before. Loyalty did not collapse suddenly. It dissolved quietly through divided attention and unprotected emotional access. And this pattern is amplified even further by a force that never sleeps, never stops offering comparison, and never respects commitment: social media. In the next part, we will explore how constant digital comparison rewires desire and turns loyalty into a silent casualty of modern life. Social media has become the modern battlefield of loyalty, and most men do not realize they are fighting a war they never agreed to enter. In the past, comparison was limited to a small circle of real people. Today, a woman compares her relationship to thousands of curated lives, filtered bodies, staged romance, and carefully edited masculinity that feels endlessly accessible. This constant exposure quietly rewires expectations and erodes gratitude. Each scroll introduces a new illusion: men who appear richer, more confident, more dominant, more adventurous, or more emotionally expressive. Not necessarily better men, just better presented moments. Over time, this creates a psychological drift. What she has in front of her begins to feel ordinary, even if it is healthy and real. Familiarity loses its value when novelty is always one swipe away. Platforms are designed to exploit this vulnerability. Instagram delivers high-resolution temptation, showing lifestyles and partners that seem effortlessly superior. TikTok cycles through men displaying charisma, strength, humor, and romance. In short, intense bursts that trigger emotional reactions without context. Snapchat provides private tunnels with no accountability. where boundaries blur quickly and secrecy feels harmless. None of these platforms promote loyalty. They promote stimulation. The danger is not that she sees better options. The danger is that her nervous system begins to believe better options are always available. This belief disconnects her emotionally from the man in front of her. She may still say she loves you, but her attention is fragmented. Her presence becomes thinner, her investment weaker. Modern relationships rarely die from loud arguments or dramatic betrayals. They die from silent comparison, from unspoken dissatisfaction fueled by fantasy rather than reality, from the slow death of appreciation when illusion replaces gratitude. Social media does not show better men. It shows edited moments stripped of responsibility, consistency, and flaws. But the emotional brain does not process that difference. It only reacts to stimulation. Over time, loyalty loses its emotional reward. And when a woman has already been conditioned by validation addiction, weak boundaries, male orbiters, and negative social influence, social media becomes the final accelerant. It does not create disloyalty. It exposes and amplifies it. This leads to a difficult realization many men avoid. Some women were never loyal to begin with. In the next part, we will confront the uncomfortable truth that for certain women, loyalty is not a principle, but a performance that lasts only as long as comfort remains. One of the hardest truths for men to accept is that some women were never loyal in the first place. Many confuse emotional warmth with commitment, comfort with devotion. Some women enter relationships not because they are devoted to the man, but because they are attached to the stability, lifestyle, attention, or security he provides. In these cases, loyalty is not a principle. It is a performance. As long as life feels comfortable, the performance continues. When discomfort appears, loyalty vanishes without hesitation. The signs are often there early. She is easily distracted by attention, overly receptive to compliments, comfortable maintaining romantic connections from the past, and speaks about love as a feeling rather than a responsibility. When loyalty is tied to convenience, betrayal does not require temptation, only opportunity. She is not loyal to you. She is loyal to the comfort you create. Remove the comfort, and the bond dissolves. For others, betrayal begins through sexual dissatisfaction. This does not always come from emotional distance or conflict. Sometimes it comes from boredom, routine, or a loss of intensity. Instead of communicating, some women quietly detach. They become vulnerable to men who carry novelty, passion, or a different energy. Not better men, just different ones. When physical connection becomes predictable and mechanical, emotional curiosity seeks stimulation elsewhere. A woman who leaves mentally in the bedroom often leaves emotionally long before she leaves physically. Alcohol, nightlife, and party culture accelerate every weakness discussed so far. Loyalty collapses quickly in environments designed to dissolve restraint. Alcohol weakens judgment, music, lighting, and attention encourage impulsivity. Boundaries fade. A different version of her emerges, driven by sensation, excitement, and the desire to feel alive. It does not matter how loyal she claims to be while sober, when she repeatedly places herself in environments that reward recklessness, betrayal becomes a matter of time. Many women who chase constant partying are not chasing fun. They are chasing feelings they cannot generate in everyday life. Sensation replaces stability, and sensation is the enemy of consistency, discipline, and commitment. The final truth every man must understand is this: a woman's loyalty is not a reflection of your worth. Her choices do not define whether you were enough. Trying to save someone who chooses chaos will destroy your identity and peace. Protecting your purpose matters more than protecting a relationship. Loyal women choose you even when temptation exists. Disloyal women betray themselves long before they betray you. Live as a man with direction, standards, and self-respect. You are not an option, you are the standard, and anyone who cannot see that does not belong in your life. This message is not about attacking women or generalizing behavior. Loyalty is a human responsibility, not a gender trait. The modern world makes commitment harder, and understanding these dynamics protects you from repeating painful cycles. Recognize patterns, choose wisely, build a solid life, and only allow those capable of loyalty to share it with you.